Okay, all right. So now that we've tackled all the white keys, a lot of the next couple of pages is going to be stuff that's a little bit more used, or that you're going to learn a little bit more in music theory, more than here. So I will expect you guys to know things like sharps, flats, and natural signs. And then I'll also expect you to know how to read in treble and bass clef as well. If you have a little bit of trouble with that, depending on what theory class you're enrolled in, you can ask for help in that. But I can help with you with that in Zoom hours if need be. If the piano does read in both bass and treble clef, so that is why it's a very, very, very good idea to get comfortable with both of those clefs. There is on page, switch, 22, there's a grand staff there that has all these keys listed from bottom to top. So basically starting at this C that's way down here and going up to this high C that's over here. If you need to, you can take some time just to get used to where those are. Middle C is going to be in basically the middle of the piano. But if you guys can see, yes, now you can see it. I have this K kawaii thing that's the maker of the piano. If I just drop right here and go to find the C right next to it, that's a pretty easy way to find middle C. There are a lot of them, I do know that, yeah. But that's a trick if you, especially if you're about to take a test or something and you don't want to have to do multiple takes, just knowing where middle C is can help you. And if you start there, then typically you can work your way up and down in the bass clef. And then we're going to practice in just a second in playing it, starting on a couple of different notes. So if you can turn to page 23, you're going to see at the top of the page, it says naming notes and playing melodic patterns. We're not going to do all of these, but I would encourage you to try while you are at home, after you watch this video, to try to see if you can play through all of these examples. So what they'll have, and this will be uploaded on Blackboard, you will have 1, 2, 3, all the way through 8, and you're going to have a starting note that you need to name. If you're not quite sure, you can always go back to the grand staff page that was just right before it, and that can help you a little bit. And then it can also help you, if you know where middle C is, you can typically find exactly where the note is. If you do, I will say that if you do start in the wrong octave, but you have all the right notes on a test, unless it's just way off, like it's in the bass clef and you're like way up here, then I'm probably not going to dock points, but at the beginning. As we go along, I'm going to expect you to know where everything is. So that would be another thing that I would try to incorporate in practice, is just seeing if you can find out where things are in the piano. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do 3 examples in naming the first note and everything like that. So I'm going to swivel you around to see this page, okay? It's a little bit backwards, which is unfortunate, but if you go to 1 right here, this is what middle C is going to look like, and you're going to see it flipped back over in real time when you have your own sheet. So this right here, you can write in the blank. I don't have a pencil right at this moment, so I'm just going to point to this and write middle C right here, or just C. Then what I want to do is go right across from here to this very first example. And this is where I'm going to put you down because you all should have this. So 1 and the very first example right next to it. What you want to do is look at a couple things. First, look at what clef it's in. We have treble clef right here. Time signature does not matter right now because we're just playing this really short example. I could honestly care less about that. So look for the first finger number. You guys are at a point where you're not deciding your own finger numbers, they're giving them for you. So be thankful of that, because that's not always going to happen if you continue with piano. So find the first finger number. In this case, it's 2. And if we're playing with treble clef, we're playing with your right hand, okay? So you want to go find middle C on the piano. So I'm right here, right next to the letters on the piano. You're going to put 2 on C. Once you have that, it's just a matter of looking for steps and skips. So a step is going to be going from a line to a space. A space, or not a space, a skip is going to be going either from line to line or space to space. Okay? That's an easy way, instead of being like, oh my gosh, what are all of these notes? That eventually, if you know what note you're starting on, this is going to help you a lot, especially in sight reading when your brain does not have time to think about it. We will do that much later, obviously, but this is good to get in the habit of right at this moment. Okay? So I'm going to put 2, right hand back on C right here. So first note is C. Then you're going to look at the very next note, and we have a line to a space. So we're gonna go up. So C, and then up to D is the very next note. Then you look at the next note. Hey, it's the same one. Awesome, perfect. You're gonna play the same note. And you're gonna look. We go down from a space to a line. Good. Okay. So I'm doing this right for you because I cannot interact with you face to face. But what I would encourage you to do, even as silly as it sounds, right now, while you're trying to get used to playing a completely different instrument, is do exactly what I did just right now. So name, am I going to go up or down? And am I going to go from a line to a space? Or, am I going to skip or anything? Eventually things will get bigger, so it's going to be a little bit harder to do that. But the more you get in habit of it right now, the easier time that your brain is honestly going to have. Okay? So now let's go down. We're going to go down to this second one. That note right there is going to be our treble G. So you're going to find your middle C. Swivel this over and tilt it down. So I'm on the C right here. You're going to go D, E, F, G, and go up to that G right here. And that's also on page 22. So that is going to be your starting note for right now. We call this treble G. If you needed a special name for it, to help you remember it, that's something that I like to call it with like really little kids because it sticks in their mind. So we're going to go over to the first example from there. Look at the clef. We've got treble. So this means our right hand again. This time we start on this G, and we're going to start with our first finger. So in this case, in a right hand, that's our thumb. Thumbs are always the first finger. Okay? So we're going to take that and put that on G right here. And we're going to do the same process that we just did. I might go a little bit faster this time. So you're going to start G, first note. And you look, you go up, and you just have a step. You go up to a space. So A is the next note that's above it. Then up again, just a step to B. And then you're going to look. Now we're going to go down. But oh, look at this. We've got line to line. So we're going to skip over A and go down to G right there. Okay? All right? I know this seems a little bit tedious right now, but if you do that, just kind of do that with all these examples, it's probably by the time you get through about 7 of them, you're going to be like, okay, whatever, I've got this as long as I've got my starting note. But it's good to start off just kind of as a base thing. Okay? So the last one that we are going to do is we're going to do a left-hand example. So if you go down the page, we're going to go down to number 7. So now we're in bass clef, so we're going to be using our left hand, okay? This is going to be a bass C. So if you go to middle C right here, and you can kind of go over to this chart on 22 again, and just go backwards in the alphabet this time. So C, B, A, G, F, E, D, and then C. I'm a little bit out of camera view, so I'm going to tilt you over here, but it's going to be the next lowest, the C right under middle C, essentially. Okay? So, we're going to go over from that C, and we're going to go over to the very first example. We're still in bass clef, and our first note is obviously C. This time, they want our second finger to be on it. Okay? So, tilt that back down. All right, and then I'm going to swivel you over a little bit, okay? So we're going to put our second finger on this bass C right here, okay? And then we are going to start with that note, and then look. This time we're going down, so that means we're going to go towards the left right now, and we're going to skip because we're going from space to space, down, and then back. We're going to go back up a step, and then one more step up to C. So the notes for this one, C, A, B, C. So this one is it's a little bit more of a tedious thing, and after a couple times you're like, I got this, feel free to stop after this. Well, actually, I'd say after the first one and go on, which I'm saying that now after we've done all of this work. But in case it's a little bit more foreign to you, that at least should get you started on the rest of them. And I would highly advise, this is not our assignment for the week, but I would highly advise you go through each one of those, because that's going to make the assignment for this week a little bit easier. Okay? So very briefly, I will mention what the assignment is before I go back and talk a little bit about whole steps and half steps. Okay? So the assignment for this week, and I will post this on Blackboard as an announcement too, okay, is going to be on page 26, and we're going to do number 2. Okay? So let me show you a very backwards view of it, but it should look like this. It's the one that is forte and says with energy. We're going to get more into practice tips in the next video about this. It can be with, let's just call it with reserve for right now. I do not care about speed for any single one of these. I care about just right notes and a good, for right now, pretty accurate sense of rhythm are the two biggest things that I want to know. This is your first assignment, so I'm not going to throw anything super terrifying at you. If you can play fast, great, but I want accuracy over anything, okay? And like I said, next video we'll tackle that. I know this is a little bit more of, just a little bit of a longer one, but one last thing, very briefly. So, you all should know what sharps and flats and natural signs are. If not, then theory classes will help. There's also on page 19, there's a little bit of info on that. Right underneath that, you should see a couple little boxes that say half steps and whole steps. So, a half step is the distance from any key to the very next key above. A whole step is going to be 2 half steps. So in the piano, it's going to be more of a matter of spacing, okay? So, if I take you and put it right here, I'm just going to go to this key right here, and I'm going to try to stay out of the way of this camera with the rest of my body as much as possible. So, a half step on the piano is typically going to be either from a white key up to the very next black one, or a black key, so the same key, up to the very next white note, okay? The only times where we have half steps that are not from white to black or black to white are going to be when we have E and F right here. So as you can see, there's no black note in the middle, so those are going to be half steps. Same thing with B and C, okay? Especially with a half step. A whole step sounds a little bit jarring, but a half step is going to sound very, 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 very dissonant when you put it together. So, if you're trying to play half steps, and you hear more like together, and you hear more pretty sounds like this, which is a whole step, then you've done something a little bit wrong. So, now moving on to whole steps, that's basically 2 half steps. So most of the time, it's white note to a white note, or black note to a black note. Now, a couple exceptions to this one too, like E and F sharp, we've got a white and a black note, or B and C sharp, we've got a white and a black note. If you're a little bit confused still on this, you feel free to rewind just to where the whole step section starts. And also you can just kind of practice going around, play 2 notes that are really close to each other, and be like, and run it through those criteria and see what happens. So, I think that is it on half and whole steps. Happy practicing.